Hey guys, so this is the big project I've been leading up to. I've been working on the script for ages. It is now currently 17 pages. So I hope this goes well, fingers crossed. I'm really excited to bring this video to you because I really love this movie and I really want to talk about it. Now, I want to be clear, I love this movie to be sure, but like everyone with half a brain, I hate the fuck out of M. Night Shyamalan, whose real first name is Manoj, by the way. This film is an anomaly of anomalies in the sense that this film is a fucking masterpiece of directing and writing, yet it was heralded by the most incompetent director and screenwriter ever. People have compared Jordan Peele, of all people, to M. Night. I guess because no reminded them of Signs, even though they're two completely different movies. But they are fucking wrong. How dare you? Jordan Peele has only made 3 movies. 4 if you count Keanu, which I'll talk about someday. And only one of them has been bad. Manoj has made over 10 movies, most of which have been bad. They're not remotely the same. Also, Manoj is about the most narcissistic person to ever walk the planet, while Jordan is more humble. But I'll talk about that later, because it's hilarious how narcissistic M. Night is. Seriously, he makes Donald Trump look like a humble man. Anyway, this movie is great for multiple reasons, but I first want to get out of the way the reason why everyone thinks this movie is great, which is, of course, the twist trademark. Don't get me wrong, the twist is great. Probably the only twist in an M. Night movie that is worthy of being associated with him, as he's now known as the twist director. Now, everybody knows the twist already, of course, so I'm only going to refer to the actual content of when it's necessary to explain aspects of the movie. I don't care about spoiling it for obvious reasons. If you by some miracle have been living under a rock and don't know it, watch the fucking movie. I actually don't think the twist is the best or even close to the best part of this film. It's not even super original. In fact, I suspect M. Night was taking notes while watching Jacob's Ladder, but that's just my speculation. This film is not about the twist, which is part of what makes it so brilliant. Unlike maybe any other movie I've seen with a major twist, especially one as essential to our modern culture as this one, it's not core to appreciating the movie. The movie would be almost just as good without the twist. Furthermore, let's talk about the main actor and character in this film, who is also maybe the worst main actor in this film, but that's relatively speaking, since he's actually pretty good. Bruce Willis is mostly remembered for Die Hard, which honestly should be remembered more for Alan Rickman, but I think Bruce Willis should be better remembered for films like this one and 12 Monkeys. You know, films where he actually acts. Now, I know the whole situation is sad now, since Willis now has aphasia and dementia, actually the same severe form that Monty Python member Terry Jones had before he died. But let's remember him for his few good movies and not his 100 shitty movies. Okay? It's actually a miracle that M. Night, of all directors, was able to get a rousing performance out of Bruce Willis. As for Terry Gilliam, well, he just does that shit for breakfast. Anyway, Bruce Willis really plays the character, Malcolm Crowe, who is mired in regret. He doesn't understand until the very end of the movie why Donnie Wahlberg's character, Vincent Gray, shot him, and yes, that is Donnie Wahlberg. We'll talk about him later. Or why his wife doesn't talk to him anymore, or why barely anyone talks to him for that matter. He doesn't understand all of this, but he does understand that he made a mistake, and that he couldn't save Vincent. He spends all of the movie trying to figure this out, but you can tell his character is, pun not intended, haunted by his past actions. In a way, he is just as haunted as Cole and Vincent were, just in a different way. A core theme of this movie is coming to terms with your own demons. Bruce Willis in this way really plays a different character than any of his other movies, even with the movie with his by far best performance, which is of course 12 Monkeys. Now let's talk about Cole, Haley Joel Osment's character. Haley Joel Osment gives the child acting performance of a lifetime. It's really like no other child actor I've ever seen. And yes, someday I will talk about his vastly inferior younger sister, Emily, and the glorious train wreck of a movie that is Cyberbully. He's done a good job in other movies as a child, although not really as an adult. Sometimes I just want to throttle him through the screen and yell, "Act, Haley, act." Such as Forrest Gump, especially considering he was 4 at the time. I mean, how do you even get a 4-year-old to act? and AI, but he really deserved his Oscar nomination for this film. In fact, speaking of Oscar nominations, I was really impressed to find how many Oscars this film was nominated for, considering its subject matter. Most horror films, or what I like to call horror-adjacent films like this one, don't get nominated for any Oscars, and that's a crying shame. Toni Collette, who I'll talk about later, definitely should have won an Oscar for performance in Hereditary. Boy, did that performance give me the chills. Anyway, back to Haley Joel Osment. This kid is, or at least was, brilliant, a real prodigy. Apparently, according to Minoj, he'd read the whole script for The Sixth Sense 3 times before they even started filming. In addition, in interviews around this time the film came out, you can tell just how smart he was for his age. He plays the dual role of the adorable little, and I mean little. Even now, despite being chubby, the man makes Tom York look like a giant. Ugly, dead child and the troubled soul. He really plays a character equivalent to the troubled protagonist of a psychological thriller, except that sort of role is almost always filled by an actor of at least twice the age Haley was at the time. I think the only reason Cole is not the main character in this film is A, Haley wasn't the more famous actor, and B, it would too easily have revealed the twist. Haley Joel Osment really achieves a whole range of emotions any actor would be envious of. Though his primary mode is understandably scared, and Minoj in particular said he directed Haley not to ever act sad, which was actually a smart directorial decision on Minoj's part. He also at times comes across as genuinely caring, especially for his mother, innocent in an appropriately childish way, genuinely strange, such as in the stuttering Stanley scene, which I'll talk about, and even bitter and sarcastic at times, as in this great exchange. I would say that Haley's performance is the best child acting performance I've ever seen in a film, with one possible exception, and that's not even for an overall performance. It's one scene in the other movie. Haley's performance in this movie is the best overall child acting performance I've ever seen. Side note before I stop talking about Haley, if you want to see something really funny, watch Haley as an adult get trolled hard by Eric Andre, and then later in the episode, watch Eric Andre get trolled by Dennis Rodman. I promise you won't regret it.
Thank you, son.
That was a brisk ass walk. You're athletic.
That was the fastest guess from Carton Couch.
You're a comet. You're a shooting star. You're in the one M. Night Shyamalan movie that wasn't a stinking pile of shit.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Oh, and one more thing. After seeing how many child actors turned out disturbed, and especially seeing what Corey Feldman has turned into, I resolved that we must protect Haley and Mara Wilson at all costs. Those two defined the 90s, and I'd hate to see either of them go crazy. Now let's move on to Toni Collette's performance as Lynn Sear. Though Toni Collette had already found success in Australia and in some American films, this was her real big break. And it was so for a reason. She does a great job. She really comes across as the concerned maternal character. She does a great job of playing mothers in film, up there with Ellen Burstyn. Her chemistry with Osment is legitimately convincing. They really do feel like mother and son. Maybe except for the fact that Collette was 25 and Osment was 10, making her a teen mom, which is certainly possible but not probable. Her character is genuinely stressed by many things, and Collette conveys this well in her performance. Lynn's recently been divorced, and her husband is out of the picture. We never even see him in the film. It's mentioned in the early scene that she had secrets related to her divorce, maybe an extramarital relationship. She's poor and is working multiple jobs to make ends meet, and of course she's trying to figure out what's going on with her son. Her process of figuring out what's going on with Cole is a really interesting subplot as well. It's even further intriguing that she doesn't figure it out, or even believe Cole until he tells her and convinces her. This film applies a kind of magical realism to the concept of ghosts and seeing ghosts in the sense that everything else is normal and there are no other supernatural phenomena that we know of, in addition to the fact that seeing ghosts is so rare and therefore disbelieved or ignored by the general public. This even applies to Malcolm, whose fatal mistake, it is revealed, is that he didn't realize Vincent could see ghosts. Now, because of the way this world is set up, it's completely understandable that he made this mistake, any more than you or I would reasonably believe someone could see ghosts. In this way, his regret really rounds him out as character, because yes, he made a mistake, but it was completely justifiable. He almost makes the same mistake with Cole, as exemplified in the fallout of the infamous I See Dead People scene and the equally riveting Don't Fail Me scene. Lastly, there is perhaps the most brilliant, unexpected performance in this film, and that is, of course, the aforementioned chilling performance at the very beginning of the film by Donnie Wahlberg as the tortured Vincent Gray. Whatever you may think of Donnie's and his brother's music, personality, or political views, I think we can all say that he is amazing in this brief role, and his character is essential to understanding the twist, the world of this film, and much of the film in general. He has some of the most profound lines in this film, and that clip of him confronting Malcolm and his wife is perhaps the best scene from the film. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it for the life of me on YouTube except for a very short clip, despite so many other clips from The Sixth Sense being out there. But if I find it, I might someday do an entire video analysis of just that clip. It's so brilliant. Wahlberg also accomplished perhaps my favorite weight transformation I've ever seen in a film. And me being a little bit of a nerd about movie weight loss and knowing about all the weight loss transformations in recent film history, that's a big accomplishment. He lost 42 pounds for this role, and he looks completely unrecognizable. Even in other films where actors lost 50 or 52 or even 66 pounds.
Me? I know who I am. I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
For a role, they all still pretty much look like the same actor, just emaciated. But Donnie looks like a completely different person. So that when I first watched this with my parents, who of course had seen this movie before, my mother asked, "Who's that?" at that scene, and I looked it up to find it was Donnie Wahlberg, to which my mom explained, "That is not Donnie Wahlberg." Even upon repeat viewings with my parents, as I've said, I love this movie, I've seen it a million times, for a long time she still couldn't believe it. The surprising thing is that if you look up celebrity weight loss transformations, you likely won't find this one on the list, despite this film being more iconic than films like Les Mis or Joker. I think the reason is that no one realized it was Donnie Wahlberg. According to interviews, yes, I watched a documentary on the making of this film, Suck It, with the man himself. Donnie starved himself for this role and was desperate to end filming as it dragged on because every day he was on set meant another day he had to starve. It was amazing that he did all this for 5 minutes in the movie, when so many other actors have gone to lesser lengths to dedicate themselves to a main role. In addition, the choice for Vincent to be in his underwear was Donnie's choice. Apparently Donnie wanted to be naked originally, but I guess the other people were like, "No, Donnie, no one wants to see your wang wang." So they came up with the compromise of him being in his underwear.
I mentioned it to Bruce that I wanted to be naked in the scene. He said, "That sounds cool, but why do you want to do that?" My take was that Vincent was ready to end his suffering, and he wasn't hiding anymore. He tried drugs, he tried rebelling, and he tried, probably wearing dark makeup and every outlet he could have to get away from the pain and the fear that he was feeling, and he was ready to end it. And so why bury him in clothes and give off some impression that he's a rebellious kid or whatever, because he wasn't. He was a tortured kid.
Looks really good.
Knight came over and Bruce said, "Donnie, tell him your idea, And I told him, and Knight thought it was a great idea.
Okay, hit it. On action, Donnie, you say, did you get him drunk?
The underwear was sort of the compromise. When it was time to shoot the scene, they recommended I put on some pants, and I just didn't want to. So we settled on tighty whities.
Ready?
There was also a line that Donnie ad-libbed. "I've been waiting for this for 10 years. I'm not going to wait any longer." But this isn't the most chilling line of the encounter. Perhaps the most profound line of the entire movie, more profound than I See Dead People ever is, was, or will be, is, "Do you know why you're afraid when you're alone? I do. I do." Honestly, this is such a great and underrated line, especially considering M. Night is such an abysmal screenwriter for the most part. It's actually one of my favorite lines in a movie ever. I think it has multiple meanings. Not only does it refer directly to Vincent's troubled past of seeing ghosts and his constant fear as a result of that, but also to the fear that exists within us all, and the things we were all haunted by in our lives. Vincent is also very childish in his language and general mannerisms, indicating that he is still that scared child inside, who Malcolm failed so greatly he hasn't been able to move past his demons onto maturity. So now that I've got the main performances out of the way, I'll move into the main themes as well as minor subplots, key scenes, and details I find interesting, especially as everyone and their grandmother knows the basic plot, and which I might discuss a bit more. First of all, I want to get out of the way the I See Dead People scene, as despite how popular it is and how often it has been memed, it is still a vital scene, both to understanding the twist and in general, and a very good scene at that. It's also a scene I can personally relate to, and, I know this is embarrassing to admit, even cried about one time. Now you might be thinking, what, Matthew, you're saying you see dead people now? No, that's not what I'm saying. Basically, this scene opens with Cole truly opening up to Malcolm by telling him his big secret, showing that he finally trusts him after being initially scared of him. This is a secret that has been weighing on him presumably all his life, something he has told no one before, and even if he did, no one would believe him, presumably. In fact, Malcolm doesn't even believe him at first. The reason I teared up at that scene was because it reminded me of a time when I told the doctor in the emergency room the content of my intrusive thoughts for the first time. Though I was not a child at the time, I was very vulnerable. I think it's a scene many of us can relate to. Many of us have had a major secret that we are scared to talk about, and all of us have been vulnerable children. Haley Joel Osment's acting in this scene makes us all the more sympathetic/empathetic for a situation. In addition, this scene is vital to setting up the world of the film, and of course, the twist. It's not as important that Cole says, "I see dead people." We already know that from either the popularity of the film and this particular scene, the clues that are given earlier in the film, or hell, even the fact that the film is called The Sixth Sense. What's important is what he says afterwards.
Walking around like regular people. We don't see each other. They only see what they want to see. They don't know they're dead.
What's so brilliant about this scene and this movie, unlike so many other Minogue movies, old, is that those rules for this universe are followed to a T. They perfectly describe Malcolm's situation as well as the other ghosts Cole sees. Now, I did think there was an error in the dialogue because Cole does end this exchange with, "You won't tell anyone else my secret, right?" But Cole already knows Malcolm is dead, and therefore can't tell anyone else. It's established at the beginning of the film upon repeat viewings. So I thought this was a minor script error, probably on Minogue's part. However, I've discussed this with other people, I mean my mom, and they've, again my mom, pointed out that "you won't tell anyone" is something a child would say after revealing a secret like that, even if it wasn't necessarily applicable to the situation. Then there's probably the weirdest scene of this movie, something which I still can't figure out why it's in the film. It doesn't make that much sense with the rest of the film. That is, of course, the stuttering Stanley scene. This scene is both strangely uncomfortable and hilarious. Also, the gag with the kid writing on the blackboard, dropping his chalk, is probably the funniest part of the movie. If I had to guess why this is in the film, I think it highlights the ostracism Cole faces for his difference on a daily basis, as well as setting up the later friendship between Cole and the titular teacher. It also sets up the great coin trick scene, which I mentioned earlier, and even the call back to the coin trick at the party later on in the film. It also establishes Cole's strange nature, which is clearly due to him having the ability to see ghosts. One thing I've never been able to figure out is how Cole figured out Stanley used to stutter. I guess ghosts that used to go to the school told him. That would have weird implications. I also want to get into a subplot that is often ignored in reviews of the film, and it's probably the most disturbing aspect of this entire film, because it tackles a very real and brutal form of child abuse before it was even really known in popular media. That is, of course, the story of Kira, the little puking ghost girl who Cole helps when he figures out that all the ghosts want his help. When Cole goes to Kira's funeral to find the videotape Kira recorded before her death, it's revealed that Kira died because her mother was inducing her illness for sympathy from her family and friends, and that her mother is now currently doing the same to her younger sister. This is a particular horrific form of child abuse known as Munchausen's by proxy. This form of abuse has been sensationalized by the media quite a lot in recent years, especially with real-life cases like the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case. But before any of that, before this abuse was really well known to the public, there was this movie and this subplot. I think it's really well executed. From the actor playing the dad's acting, to the confrontation between the mom and the dad after he sees the video, which presumably stops the younger sister from suffering Kira's fate.
You were keeping her sick.
For once, M. Night deals with a really serious subject with at least some tact. I did also want to briefly mention Olivia Williams' performance in this film as Anna Crow, which is not the best performance, but she's a really underrated actress. She's appeared in many TV series recently, and many people forget her important role in this movie. Anna is, like many of the characters in this film, a troubled soul. She witnessed both the death of her beloved husband and the graphic suicide of Vincent Gray only 6 months before the main events of the film. She's clearly still dealing with this loss and trauma, probably blaming herself to some extent. And even when she tries to move on with her life, Malcolm clearly doesn't understand and thinks she is cheating on him. At the very end of the film, Anna asks Malcolm in her sleep, "Why did you leave me?" even though she already obviously knows the answer. She is probably asking this rhetorically, reflecting on the fact that she thinks she always came second to Malcolm's career in the relationship, and of course in this scene he reveals that this is not the case. Just real quick, can we talk about the puppy? It's a little Siberian husky puppy named Sebastian, and he is the cutest puppy. He looks like my dog Artemis might have as a puppy, except a lot less floofy. Also, many have pointed out the inclusion of the color red as like a key to the supernatural in this film. I'm actually really impressed with M. Night for including this theme in his film because it's a sign of competent filmmaking, something which Minoj has obviously since lost. I also like some of the minor details, such as the fact that Cole and Vincent both have a gray/white patch of hair, and that Cole is also able to calm down his mother by comforting her in her sleep. I thought this was a really sweet touch that cemented their relationship. There's also the significance of the main characters' last names, a method used in filmmaking I have mixed opinions on. When it's done right in films like The First Matrix or Jacob's Ladder, it can be brilliant and really add to the film. But when done in lesser films, it can come across as tacky, pretentious, and cringeworthy. Music. In this film, I think it's the former. Crow translates phonetically to crow, a symbol often associated with death, not just for Malcolm being dead, obviously, but also for Anna dealing with the ramifications of his death. Sear obviously translates to seer, and gray represents how torment Vincent is. It's a clever, albeit obvious, tactic, and it actually works very well in the film. Before I get into the main themes of the film and my conclusion, I just wanted to point out one more thing. As we will see in many Minoj films to come, M. Night really, really likes Philly. It was where he was raised, so why not?
No, something crazy didn't happen at the end.
Is that a thing? Is he Shyamalan-esque?
He's very Shyamalan.
Is that what everyone from there does with their movies?
What do you mean by everyone from there?
I don't know. Philadelphia. Saved it.
It just gets annoying in his other films. But anyway, I like the quaint setting of this film, as well as the scenery regarding the buildings, which my dad really appreciated too, as my grandma was raised in Pennsylvania and my dad went to UPenn. The only thing, which my dad pointed out upon a recent rewatching, is that they didn't have what he likes to call murder-dirter accents, which is a reference to a parody of the recent miniseries Mayor of Easton.
We don't know.
With a very specific accent.
Oh no. I know her. It's Owen's Dirter.
Dirter?
Did I stir? The Dirter's been murdered.
Or even Philly accents. To be fair, this was one of Toni Collette's first roles doing an American accent. And I'm sure Bruce Willis couldn't do an accent to save his life, so I'm going to cut M. Night some slack for once. So finally, what is this movie about? Well, many people see it as just a particularly good, heartwarming story about ghosts and a blueprint for many twists in films to come. To be fair, 1999 was quite the year of influential movie twists, and of influential movies in general. Though it is certainly that, I would argue it is about a lot more. Manoj himself argued the film was about communication in that aforementioned documentary on the making of this film. And though I would agree with him to a certain extent, I would argue the film goes even deeper than that. A side note, M. Night argued that all of his films were about something more than they just appeared. To which I had to say, then what the fuck was After Earth about? What the fuck was The Visit about? How do you justify those atrocities of film? The film's main premise of seeing ghosts could be a metaphor for many things. LGBT status, as exemplified in Cole's coming out to his mom, past history of abuse or other traumatic experiences, mental illness, and though it could certainly represent all those things, I think it's something simpler than that. It's just about secrets. After all, it's a universal experience. Everyone has had a major secret at some point, and furthermore, the main message of this film is that secrets will destroy you if you let them. That is what happened to Vincent. He not only was not able to tell anyone his secret, which led to his mental breakdown, but he also had no one to support him through his secret, which is why he tells Malcolm, "You failed me," another profound line. Even Kira was literally destroyed by not telling anyone she was being abused when she was alive. Furthermore, I think the film is about respecting others' differences and coming to terms with your own differences. Others have pointed out part of what makes this film work is that Cole is bullied and ostracized, and presumably Vincent was treated this way all his life too, not because he can see ghosts, but simply because he is different. This works as a metaphor for anyone who has ever felt different, which is of course everyone. It's Cole coming to terms with his differences that forms the catalyst for his transformation from a bullied outcast to an outgoing child, realizing that he is not cursed, but gifted. This is in contrast to Vincent, who thought he was a freak and cursed all his life. This is something and I'm sure many other people can relate to, as someone who's felt many times that I am not deserving of love for many of my differences, and that I am a freak because of certain things that I deal with.
I don't tell her things.
Why not?
Because she doesn't look at me like everybody else, and I don't want her to. I don't want her to know
Know what?
that I'm a freak.
This film is also about the power and importance of belief/faith, even in extraordinary circumstances. M. Night has this as a common theme in many of his movies, which makes me wonder if he's religious or something, including Unbreakable, Split, and especially Signs. I won't discuss this in much detail since it's a pretty obvious theme and I don't have much to say about it, but I just wanted to mention it. Finally, this movie is about the passage of time and the progression of events and our ability to rewrite them. This is particularly exemplified through Malcolm's character progression, the best character progression I've seen in a Bruce Willis character besides, of course, 12 Monkeys, which I will have to talk about someday. Malcolm feels regret about the past, not only about the confrontation between him and Vincent in the beginning, but about his failure to recognize what was going on with Vincent in the past. The present is Malcolm trying to figure out what happened in the past and dealing with Cole and Anna in the present. What is the future then? It's Malcolm's role, despite being dead and only visible to select people, in changing the future for Cole, and in that way make up for his mistake in the past. Cole would have become Vincent if he hadn't received the support with his secret that he did with Malcolm and his mom, and both of those characters were able to change it for the better. It is only by changing Cole's future that Malcolm was able to move on and no longer live life on this earth haunting people as a ghost, as exemplified during the final scene when Malcolm talks to Anna and the twist is revealed. On this point, I think Cole, Vincent, and Malcolm also represent different life phases and crises during those phases, with Cole being the fearful child, Vincent being the troubled young man, and Malcolm being the regretful middle-aged man. So as you can tell, I love this film. It is genuinely one of my favorite films of all time. And that might be a surprise because I know everyone loves to hate M. Night, and for good reason. But I actually think that Manoj's downfall is quite disappointing because he's shown by making this movie that he's entirely capable of making a good movie, even a masterpiece. Furthermore, he's made other good movies, just not a lot of them. I think he actually could be a capable director and screenwriter if he just wasn't so far up his own ass and insisted on doing everything himself. If he had the guidance of other screenwriters and directors, he could actually do a good job for himself. Furthermore, as I've mentioned, he is an extreme narcissist. Although from interviews, he actually seems like a really nice guy, so more like a benevolent narcissist. I'll show you and react to a couple of clips of him being a narcissist because they're fucking hilarious.
Mr. Shyamalan, I love your movies. I've seen every single one of them. Like in The Sixth Sense, when the woman runs by the bathroom really fast when he's going to the bathroom, and she goes into the kitchen, she's opening up all the cupboards, or that kid who throws up. And then the Village, when, first of all, I love everyone's shoes in the Village, but they're running down the hall, they're running.
My life is about finding time to dream. That's why my card is American Express. Table for one? Sure.
The funniest thing I find about this self-relating commercial is that the woman talks about perhaps the worst aspects of The Sixth Sense and M. Night's other films. It's clear she has no idea what she is talking about. I don't know if that was intentional, but if I had to guess, I think it's just Minogue being an idiot. Next, this was Deadass's response to whitewashing criticism of Avatar, The Last Airbender. Now, first of all, imagine you were in his shoes. What would a normal person say to criticisms like this? Either, I think your criticism is valid, or no, I don't think it's valid. Right? No. M. Night has this amazing third option.
Do you think the criticism of your casting Caucasians in what are ostensibly Asian roles in The Last Airbender is a fair criticism?
I cast what I believe, and I bet you I'm not straying too far from the truth when I say that it is the most diverse, culturally diverse movie ever made.
I mean, come on. That's fucking hilarious. That's literally something like Trump would say. How narcissistic and delusional do you have to be to think that your film, which is almost exclusively all people of one race, is the most racially diverse film ever made? First of all, how would you even measure that, even if that was the case? Cast all your actors as different races and have every single race represented in your film? It's fucking absurd. And who cares anyway? Like, as long as you're giving actors, equal opportunity to your film, it shouldn't really matter. I mean, yeah, it's stupid that he cast Asian characters as white actors, but, like, the whole thing is just absurd. Finally, there's this gem, also in response to Avatar, The Last Airbender criticism.
And so I'm not doing like a straight up American movie anymore. The tonalities are changing. I always had a European sensibility to my movies, so the pacing is always a little bit off for them, and it feels a little stilted, and they need more electricity and all that stuff. And I'm like, this is the way I think of things, because Hitchcock and Kurosawa and Stanley Kubrick, these are like my teachers. And
okay, there are two things wrong here. First of all, he calls his European and proceeds to list some of the greatest, or at least most acclaimed, directors of all time, none of whom are fucking European. And second of all, he compares himself, again, to some of the greatest directors of all time. I mean, how delusional can you get? Even with The Sixth Sense being a masterpiece and all, even if he made 10 movies like The Sixth Sense, he probably still wouldn't be on the same level as fucking Stanley Kubrick and Akira Kurosawa. Jesus fucking Christ. So anyway, I hope I didn't get too derailed by that side discussion on our friend Minogue here. If you haven't seen this film by some miracle, go watch it. And if you have, go watch it again. Maybe even curl up on your couch and have a little cry to it. This film may be an anomaly, but it is 100% worth seeing and analyzing.